Exposed. My boss took my hard-earned bonus. Discover how I uncovered an incredible hidden clause. Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders as she rushed through the busy Cornerstone diner, her heart racing with the hope she'd held onto for months. Her kids needed new shoes, something solid to wear for school, and the prospect of a tiny vacation was like a light at the end of a long tunnel. Her boss, Mr. Gary, had called her into his office this morning with a smile that momentarily blinded her to the known chill of his corporate demeanor. But as he flatly laid out the hidden clause, that bright smile vanished like the last flicker of daylight. The joy she had built up crumbled to dust around her. She fought back tears in the back room, the sounds of laughter and clattering dishes a cruel contrast to the despair swelling in her chest. How could he? After all those late nights, after all the sacrifices she made to keep this job on top of being a single mother to 2 little ones, Mr. Gary had done this, turned her dreams into ash. He was supposed to recognize her hard work, to reward her struggle. Instead, she'd been stripped of her hope. At a gathering of coworkers headed to the break room next door, their voices echoing frustration that mirrored her own. Did he really think we wouldn't notice? One whispered. The intensity of their shared anger vibrated through Sarah. She gathered her strength, the camaraderie sparking something deep within her. This was not just about her anymore. It was about all of them. A community fighting for respect. Before she knew it, her thoughts shifted to Mr. Thompson, the kind local veteran who visited every day. His tales of resilience and integrity had instilled a sense of pride in her. As she wiped her tears, Sarah could hear him say, "You gotta stand for what's right, Sarah. Don't let anyone walk over you." Powered by his words, she made her decision. That night, she called the coworkers back to the diner after hours. They needed to talk. As the group gathered, their laughter soon turned into a chorus of shared grievances. Each voice grew louder as they recounted the moments of feeling unnoticed and disrespected. Together, they were a symphony of determination. But just as momentum surged, Sarah faced the reality of her choice. Loyalty hinged on trusting a system that seemed intent on betraying them. Could she genuinely risk it all, or was it foolish to even dream of change? The door swung open, and in walked Jessie, her childhood friend and a paralegal. Jessie's face was flushed with urgency as she thrust a stack of papers into Sarah's hands. "I found something," she whispered. Caught in the whirlwind of emotions, the glimmer of hope flickered back to life within Sarah. But that nagging fear tightened in her gut. What if they failed? What if speaking up only led to more loss? The diner buzzed with familiar sounds, the hum of conversation, the scraping of chairs now transformed into a battleground. Sarah could feel the moment teetering on the edge of risk and redemption. But before she could take a step, a sharp siren blared outside, cutting through their busy chatter, freezing her heart. Suddenly reality crashed in. How far would she go to seek justice? Just how much was at stake? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As uncertainty washed over her, Sarah stood at the center of it all, nerves brimming. The meeting was silent but filled with every unsaid word weighing heavily in the air. She inhaled sharply, her heart racing at the impending showdown. Questions swirled in her mind. Could they reclaim their dignity and carve a new path amid the structural injustices? Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a fight that might just change everything. The room felt electric as Sarah glanced at her coworkers. Each face mirrored her own mix of uncertainty and resolve. The air was thick with tension, every beat of her heart echoing the stakes in their hands. Jessie stood next to her, fidgeting nervously with the edge of that stack of papers. There was a sense of purpose in the unknown that stretched between them, holding promises of both hope and potential heartbreak. "Did you find anything that can help us?" A voice broke through the stillness. Tom, a burly guy with kind eyes, leaned forward, desperation etched on his face. "We need to know what we're dealing with. We can't just go in blind." Jessie nodded, her eyes brightening. "Yes, there's a clause in the employee handbook about whistleblowing. If we follow the right steps, we can expose him legally. But we have to be careful. It's not just our jobs on the line. Sarah felt her stomach twist at the weight of it all. What if Mr. Gary retaliated? What if they lost everything? She tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, inhaling deeply as she tried to steady her racing thoughts. "We can't keep letting him stomp on us," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper yet brimming with determination. "If we stand together, we might just have a chance." The group began to murmur. An undercurrent of excitement threaded with fear. As they exchanged glances, Sarah could see their spirits begin to rise. "What do we need to do?" asked Maria, the diner's cook, her eyes fierce and driven. This was the spark they needed. The potential for a collective battle was suddenly tangible. Jessie stepped forward, brandishing the papers like a flag of rebellion. "We need everyone's signatures. Support from all of you will strengthen our case. If we can prove a pattern of mistreatment, we can hold him accountable." As each person nodded earnestly, Sarah felt a warmth flood her heart. Unity was forming, a potent force against the shadows they'd been living under. Just then, a loud slam of the diner's door startled them. They turned to see Mr. Gary himself standing in the entrance, fists clenched and a furious expression etched on his face. "What's going on in here?" he thundered, eyes darting suspiciously from one face to another. The laughter and chatter that had filled the room moments before faded into hushed whispers, leaving only the echo of his accusation hanging heavy in the air. Sarah's breath caught as she shot a quick glance at Jessie, whose expression mirrored her own rising panic. "We were just talking about things that matter," Sarah stammered, fighting to sound confident. Mr. Gary stepped further into the room, his towering figure casting a long shadow. "That better not include insubordination. I won't have dissent in my establishment." The threat simmered beneath his words, and Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. But it was too late to turn back. The resolve in Sarah flickered insistently, reminding her of Mr. Thompson's voice. "Enough is enough." The room was quiet, every breath held, every eye fixed on Sarah. She had the papers, and more importantly, she had her community behind her. "We're done being bullied," she said, feeling the potent strength of her words surge through her. The moment hung suspended in time, electricity crackling in the air. And then, just as Mr. Gary opened his mouth to retaliate, the unmistakable sound of police sirens filled the diner again. Louder this time, and Sarah's heart dropped. What was happening outside? Was this an omen or an opportunity? The sirens wailed like a warning, piercing through the tension. The decision loomed large. Where would the next path lead them? As they stood frozen, anxiety coiling tighter, one question burned brightly in Sarah's mind: was it too late to fight back? The sirens grew louder, piercing the thick tension in the diner. Every heart seemed to skip a beat as Mr. Gary's eyes flared with fury, glancing between Sarah and the door. He was a volcano ready to erupt, and Sarah felt the tremors of his impending explosion. "What now?" he barked, his voice rumbling through the dimly lit room. "You think you can stir up trouble and hide behind police sirens? Get back to work. All of you." Panic flickered in Sarah's chest. What if the police were coming for them? Was someone brave enough to report him? The thought sent a chill down her spine. The others exchanged worried looks, whispering amongst themselves, each person's face a blend of fear and defiance. Suddenly, the diner door burst open once more, and a police officer strode in, badge glinting under the overhead lights. The air shifted, it became tangible, heavy with unspoken questions. His serious demeanor commanded the room's attention, turning every pair of eyes toward him, including Mr. Gary's. "Is there an employee here named Sarah?" the officer asked, his voice steady but kind. Sarah's breath caught. She felt as if the spotlight had landed solely on her. Before she could respond, Jessie took a brave step forward and raised her hand. "Yes, that's her. She's been trying to lead us against our boss's unfair practices." All eyes shifted to Mr. Gary, whose expression contorted with rage, as if he were a paper crumpled and discarded. "This is outrageous," he shouted, his voice reverberating against the diner's walls. "You're telling me you're bringing the police into my establishment? You're going to regret this." The officer's gaze remained steady, trained on Mr. Gary. "We're here to investigate a report of workplace harassment. Multiple complaints have come in about conditions in this diner. We're collecting statements." A sense of liberation washed over Sarah, an intoxicating blend of fear and exhilaration. This was what she had hoped for, yet it felt surreal. I need to tell the truth, she whispered, as if summoning strength from somewhere deep within. Now wait just a second, Mr. Gary interjected, his face turning an alarming shade of red. This is all a misunderstanding. These people are just disgruntled employees. They want to cause trouble. The police officer's eyes narrowed, weighing Mr. Gary's words. Sarah felt her heart race. The time for action had come. We've endured too much, she called out, her voice growing steadier as she felt the support of her coworkers rallying behind her. We won't be pushed around anymore. With the tension in the room intensifying, the diner felt like a tinderbox. The officer gestured for silence. If you have evidence, Sarah, speak up. We will take it seriously. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding as she stepped forward, papers shaking slightly in her hands. We can prove it. We have documentation, emails, testimonies, and even just as she gathered her thoughts, Mr. Gary's anger exploded again. You're making a huge mistake, Sarah. You have no idea what you're getting into. His voice was like thunder, but within it, Sarah sensed a threat of true fear. This was not a man with the upper hand. He was terrified of what might be laid bare. Suddenly, the room felt like an arena. The stakes were high, but so was the power of the truth. Maybe I don't know everything, but I know we deserve better, Sarah shouted, her own courage taking her by surprise. And we're no longer hiding. The silence that followed was suffocating, the air heavy with raw emotion and the smell of fried food, mixed with newfound determination. Sarah locked eyes with Jessie, who beamed with pride, pushing fear aside. Just then, a heavy knock sounded from the diner's back door, making everyone jump. Sarah's stomach knotted. Who else could it be? Was support arriving or more trouble? Stay focused, the officer urged. Let us see what's happening back there. Anxiety surged as they turned to the door, hearts racing, uncertainty blooming anew. What awaited them on the other side? Would it be a new ally or a threat that could unravel everything they had worked toward? Sarah inhaled deeply, preparing herself for whatever might come. The next moments could change everything. The knock echoed through the diner like a drumbeat, heavy with expectation. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as she exchanged glances with Jessie. They all held their breath, a charged atmosphere thick with anticipation. With a firm nod, the police officer approached the back door and swung it open. The hinges creaked, and in walked another police officer, this one flanked by two others. They stepped in confidently, uniforms crisp and badges shimmering under the diner lights. The additional presence gave Sarah a swell of hope, but it was quickly mixed with confusion. Behind the officers was a figure that made Sarah's breath hitch. Rachel, her closest friend and ally from the diner, stood among them, eyes wide with concern. Rachel, Sarah called, her voice trembling as relief washed over her. She took a step forward, but the officers moved in quickly, assessing the situation. The officer in charge looked around the diner, his expression serious yet composed. We got word from someone who witnessed what was going on inside. We're here to make sure everyone's safe. Mr. Gary's face twisted into an angry mask, but now he had no room to maneuver. He squirmed as the officers surveyed the room, their gaze fixed on him like hawks eyeing a mouse. This is absurd, he shouted, but the officers didn't flinch. They had come prepared to listen, and they weren't backing down. Rachel stepped further into the diner, looking between Sarah and the officers with wide eyes. I got worried when I heard the commotion, she explained. I thought you might need support. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Her words wrapped around Sarah like a comforting embrace. This was the kind of solidarity they needed, someone willing to walk into the fire with them. Good thinking, Rachel. The officer thanked her before turning back to Sarah. Can you show us the evidence you mentioned? A rush of determination surged through her. She took a deep breath, glancing at her coworkers, each person seeming to draw courage from one another. Yes, I have everything, Sarah replied. She hurried to the counter, her fingers searching through a messy pile of papers. She pulled out emails, statements, and a carefully detailed list of the harassment instances they had all endured. As Sarah thrust the documents toward the officers, she felt the weight of the world start to lift just a little. This is it. This is everything we've collected over the months. If you look closely, you'll see Mr. Gary's true nature. Mr. Gary let out an incredulous laugh, the sound brittle and shaky. You think those flimsy papers will save you? I'll destroy you all. His words felt desperate, like a cornered animal roaring in defiance, a thin veneer over sheer terror. Your bluff 1T work here, one of the officers said, his tone unwavering. We'll investigate everything, but this ends today. As the officers began reviewing the items Sarah had provided, the tension in the air shifted, becoming a heavy blanket smothering Mr. Gary's rage. The diner filled with murmurs of cautious hope from the employees who suffered for too long. Then, just as Sarah felt the rush of victory start to bloom in her chest, an unexpected blast erupted from the front of the diner. The door swung open abruptly, and in strode someone who made even the officers freeze, a lawyer clad in a sharp suit and armed with a briefcase. I heard there might be trouble, he said, scanning the room with a confident gaze. And I assure you I'm here to set things right. The calm that had started to settle shattered again, replaced by a wave of uncertainty. Who was this lawyer? Did he come to help? Or was he another weapon in Mr. Gary's arsenal? Sarah's heart raced anew as she locked eyes with Jessie and Rachel. The stakes felt impossibly high. Do you think he could be here for Mr. Gary? Jessie whispered, fear threading through her tone. We'll just have to find out, Sarah replied, steeling herself. She had come too far to let anything stop her now. What was going to happen next? With the truth finally in sight, could they hold their ground against whatever would come their way? The lawyer's gaze swept over the room, finally landing on Mr. Gary. A flicker of recognition passed between them, and Sarah felt a chill. Had they plotted this together? Can someone explain what's happening here? The lawyer asked, his voice smooth, cutting through the tension before anyone could respond. Mr. Gary regained his composure and stood tall. This is just a misunderstanding. I don't owe anyone anything. This is harassment. The officer turned to Mr. Gary, his brow knitted. Harassment? Is that really what you want to go with given the evidence here? Mr. Gary's bravado wavered as the lawyer soon interjected. Perhaps we should discuss this in a more private setting. Tension blasted through the diner. The idea of retreating felt like a strategic exit, but dread bubbled in Sarah's stomach. What if this was an attempt to shake the case? No, Sarah cried, stepping forward. Her heart raced as she fought to maintain her voice. You don't get to make that call. We've been living in fear. We deserve to be heard here, in front of everyone. Her hands trembled at her sides, but she held her ground, feeling every pair of eyes in the diner behind her. The officer nodded, impressed by Sarah's courage. That's right. You've got every right to speak up. Rachel gripped Sarah's arm, a silent show of solidarity, her eyes sparkling with pride. Behind them, their co-workers murmured in agreement, echoing the fight that they were all in together. The lawyer's posture softened just slightly, but his tone remained authoritative. I've seen plenty of cases like this. Strong women fighting for their rights. It's commendable. He paused, eyes flicking again toward Mr. Gary. But the law is a tricky thing. You can't always assume it's fair. Fear flickered across the faces of Sarah and her friends. The stakes were rising, but what was his angle? Rachel whispered to Sarah, what is he trying to say? Are we going to lose? With all her being, Sarah felt that she needed to be the one to shift the narrative. We've come this far. We're just getting started. We have rights. And we are going to stand up for ourselves. Her voice rose, fueled by past hurts and the support around her. Whatever threats come our way, we are ready. Mr. Gary's bravado crumbled further, jaw clenched, but the lawyer looked contemplative. Well then, let us see what we can do to resolve this here today. But be cautious, there are repercussions. More murmurs filled the diner as everyone processed the conversation. Would they have repercussions? Or were they finally turning the tide? Repercussions? Sarah shot back, feeling fierce. The only people who should be scared are the ones who think they can crush us and get away with it. As the officer returned to the table, ready to take charge again, the urgency in the air thickened. Sarah could feel the collective breath of hope filling the space. But wait, what if all this strength wasn't enough against a ruthless opponent hidden behind a polished suit? In that moment, a shadow loomed large. Outside, headlights swept across the diner, and a figure stepped through the door. Her heart sank when she realized who it was, another lawyer, with an equally polished demeanor, stepping in as Mr. Gary's reinforcements. Looks like they're not done yet, Jessie whispered. flaring panic evident in her eyes. Another wave of anxiety surged through Sarah. They were outnumbered. But she wouldn't go down without a fight. Stay strong, she whispered to Jessie and Rachel, her heart racing. We have to keep pushing back. Because if we don't, who will? But as the opposing lawyer approached, the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on Sarah's chest. Could they truly turn this fight into a victory? Or were they standing at the edge of an even greater battle? Would they find a way to expose the truth, or would they become ensnared in a web of lies? The moment grew heavy with questions, leaving a wake of anticipation hanging in the air. The moment stretched, silence thick as the fear in Sarah's chest began to turn to determination. The new lawyer had an air of confidence, striding toward their table like a predator sensing its prey. His tailored suit gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and for an instant, Sarah could almost feel the shadows of intimidation clinging to him, wrapping around her like a cold, clammy fog. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "I'm here to represent Mr. Gary. I assume you've all been made aware of the situation?" Sarah felt the collective shudder ripple through her friends and coworkers. Fear was palpable, thickening the air. But Sarah clenched her fists, refusing to let it take hold. "Yes, we know. And we're ready to stand our ground." The new lawyer smirked slightly, a flicker of amusement crossing his features. "I admire the spirit, but let us not kid ourselves. This is a legal matter, and it can get messy very quickly." His gaze swept over the gathered crowd, inspiring a mix of uncertainty and defiance as he continued. "You're all convinced of your rights, but the law isn't as straightforward as you may hope." Behind Sarah, the whispers intensified again. Rachel leaned in and whispered, "Do we really stand a chance against them?" "Absolutely," Sarah replied, her heart pounding. "We won't let them intimidate us. We're the ones who have been affected. We have the truth on our side. We have the evidence," Jessie pointed out. "We wrote down everything. All the meetings, the comments, everything." "Exactly," Sarah affirmed, moving closer to their circle. "Don't forget why we're here. We've endured enough, and it's time to take a stand. For our families, for each other." Feeling the fire brewing within her, she turned to the lawyer once more. "What you consider messy has already impacted our lives. We're not afraid. If anything, we're emboldened. This isn't just about us, it's about showing others that they can also rise up." The new lawyer's smile vanished, replaced with something sharper. "You think this is about power and courage? You're playing with fire. Mr. Gary has resources, connections, far-reaching ones. Do you really want to play against that?" "I'm not playing," Sarah shot back, her voice steady now. "We're fighting for justice. Not just ours, everyone's." The tension in the room buzzed, the energy shifting as their coworkers began to nod in agreement. Sarah could see determination flickering in their eyes. In that moment, the officer stood tall again, intervening. "This isn't a game for anyone involved. It's serious, and I'm here to assure that rights are upheld." "Rights?" The opposing lawyer snorted. "Rights can often lead to vulnerabilities." Sarah felt a swell of urgency. "Maybe they can, but so can silence. Vulnerability shouldn't scare us. It should fuel us. We're ready to expose the truth." "Yes," Rachel cheered quietly, gripping Sarah's arm tighter. But as the momentum gathered, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were one misstep away from losing everything. With every passing moment, the dire stakes loomed larger, like a storm gathering overhead, ready to unleash chaos at any second. "Let South take this to court," the lawyer finally said. "If you believe we can resolve this there, but I guarantee you'll face consequences." With the challenge hanging in the air, Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the eyes of their supporters behind her, their hopes, their fears. They were all standing on the edge of a cliff. "Then let us jump together," she said, resolve surging within her. But just as the room seemed ready to change, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, causing everyone to turn. A stack of plates tumbled to the floor, shattering the tension with a bang. "What was that?" Jessie gasped, eyes wide. The moment of distraction hung in the air, and Sarah realized that the fight was far from over. What had they just unleashed? Was their spirit strong enough to confront the rising tide of opposition? Or was the chaos just beginning? The room tensed, every eye darting toward the kitchen as the crashing plates echoed like thunder. It was as if reality had suddenly dropped its mask, revealing the chaos lurking underneath. Sarah could feel the shifting energy. Uncertainty crept back in, replacing the momentary bravado. What do we do? Rachel whispered, her grip tightening around Sarah's arm, panic flickering in her eyes. Let us stay focused, Sarah urged, her heart racing. We can't allow a distraction to derail us now. We need to keep the momentum. Just as she spoke, a burly man in a white apron rushed into the room, his face flushed. Sorry, he exclaimed, waving his hands. Just a little accident back there. Nothing serious, just a lot of noise. Sarah couldn't help but notice the way his eyes shifted nervously to the opposing lawyer. It was almost as if he felt the weight of their situation, to a shared anxiety swirling between them. Are you okay? Jessie asked, her voice quieter now, tinged with concern. Yeah, just startled me. He replied with a weak smile. But the tension remained thick. Even when the man returned to the kitchen, the lawyer cleared his throat, reclaiming the attention of the room. I'd suggest considering the risks involved. It's not just legal implications you should worry about. It's your personal lives and reputations at stake. Fear gripped Sarah's chest again. But she couldn't allow it to suffocate her resolve. What if all of this is threats, the noise it's meant to rattle us? We can't back down. Yes, Rachel exclaimed, her voice rising with passion. They want us to be scared, but we have to prove them wrong. The new lawyer folded his arms, his expression now bordering on condescension. What do you think you could actually achieve? You're but a few voices against an established juggernaut. You might find yourselves isolated without support. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in, whispering that maybe he was right. But then, Sarah remembered the faces of her friends, their sacrifices, their stories. It's not just about us anymore, she affirmed, her voice steady. It's about standing up for everyone who has suffered in silence. The office seemed to brighten as her words sparked a flicker of hope. Sarah glanced at Jessie and Rachel, who were responding to her fire, nodding with determination. And what do you think this will achieve, really? The lawyer pressed, his gaze challenging. A moment of glory? You'll have to live with the consequences of your choices. The words hung heavy in the air. The weight of them felt almost unbearable. Sarah's heart raced. But what happens if we do nothing? If we remain silent? We can't let fear bind us. Suddenly, the officer cleared his throat again, stepping forward with a firmness that overrode the nervous energy bouncing around them. You all need to understand something. Action without caution can lead to greater risks. We're not about to let this escalate into something damaging. Then we'll make it count, Sarah replied, a fire rekindling deep within her. We'll fight wisely, but we'll fight. The lawyer narrowed his eyes as if he sensed the shift, the resolve bubbling in the room. If that's your decision, prepare for what's coming. You may not realize it, but you're opening a door to a world that can bite back. Just then, the back door swung open, letting in a chill breeze that swept into the room. The distant sound of sirens wailed in the background. Sarah felt an ominous tension crackle through the air, blending with the growing determination of her group. Is that fear? Rachel asked softly, scanning the horizon of swirling emotions. It's just a call to action, Sarah said, focusing on her friends' hopeful faces. Let us show them who we really are and what we stand for. But even as she spoke, a feeling of dread nagged at the edges of her mind. Were they truly prepared for the storm ahead? Sarah caught sight of the lawyer's cold grin. It was as if he knew more than he was letting on. In that moment, Sarah realized they were standing on the brink of something far bigger than any of them had anticipated. Let us get ready, she said, her voice steady. The real battle is about to begin, and we can't afford to lose. Not now. But lurking just outside, in the shadows of the unexpected sirens, a new twist awaited them. What new challenge awaited just beyond their door? The sirens grew louder, slicing through the tension like a knife. Sarah felt her heart pounding, each beat matching the thrum of urgency in the room. It wasn't just the chaos. It was the undeniable reality crashing in on them. They were at a crossroads, a moment that would define their fight. Jessie stepped closer, her expression fierce. What if they're already targeting us? What if we're already in danger? Then we fight harder, Sarah replied, her voice resolute. We show them we're not afraid. The lawyer's gaze shifted. It was like he understood the stakes were raising, but a small part of him looked eager to see them fail. Sarah swallowed hard, pushing down her fear. This wasn't just a legal battle. It was personal. Every moment spent in silence felt like a betrayal to those who had suffered. The chaos they had swallowed for years bubbled up, demanding to be released. Rachel's phone buzzed, a jarring sound that pierced through the mounting anxiety. She glanced at the screen and gasped, eyes wide. It's Claudia. She says there's a rumor that they're planning to silence us, whatever that means. Silence? Jessie echoed, her voice a whisper as the weight of those words sank in. Whatever they're planning, we need to act fast, Sarah said, pushing away the fear that threatened to suffocate her. We can't let them intimidate us. We have to take the offensive. The lawyer scoffed, arms folded tight across his chest. And how do you intend to do that? By tossing around accusations against a corporation that has billions to fight back? You're playing with fire. But fire can burn, Rachel interjected, her eyes blazing with passion. Sometimes it can also cleanse. We need to expose them. Just then, Sarah noticed the door creaking open, revealing the kitchen where the burly man still stood, a look of concern painting his features. You folks okay? He asked, his voice a mix of unease and genuine care. It's getting intense in here, and there's more going on than just a legal dispute, the officer said, his presence calming yet commanding. Sarah drew in a deep breath. We can't ignore this. We're surrounded by people whose lives have been ruined by this company. If we dampen our voices now, we remain just another statistic. The man in the apron nodded, slowly moving into the room. You're right. You need to be loud enough for people to hear you. But be careful, it's a rough world out there. The lawyer smirked, amusement flickering over his features. And yet, here you are, standing in front of a Goliath weaponless. Be very sure of your slingshot before you aim. Let us make a plan, Sarah said, her determination rising like a phoenix. We need evidence. Let us gather testimonies, photos, documents, everything. Then we take them public. The energy shifted, the group rallying around her. Hope intertwined with dread. But Sarah could see the spark igniting within them. If they want to silence us, we'll shatter that silence with our story, with the truth. As they buzzed with newfound energy, her earlier feeling of dread shifted. Something big was brewing, not an easy road. Not a sure victory, but definitely a chance to turn the tide. Before they could strategize further, the chilling wail of sirens reached a fever pitch just outside the building. The doors rattled slightly, and for the briefest moment all air seemed to freeze. What are they doing here? Rachel asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, but it can't be good, Jessie said, eyes glued to the door, heart racing. The burly man braved another step forward, brow furrowed with concern. Stay here. I'll check. Wait, Sarah called, but before she could finish, he was already out the door, the faint sounds of voices growing louder. They exchanged uneasy glances. What if this wasn't just about the threats anymore? What if they were now caught in a web far more dangerous than they could ever predict? Just then, Sarah felt a shift in the atmosphere. Something dark and intent was looming just beyond their door. They had thought the battle would start with words. But the real battle was coming. Would they be ready to fight when faced with an enemy they never saw coming? The tension in the room thickened like smoke as the air around them crackled with a sense of foreboding. Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her ribs with every anxious tick of the clock. They had been prepared for tensions, for court cases and media failures, but this was different. The urgency felt more primal, more dangerous. Do you think they're coming for us? Jessie whispered, her eyes darting toward the door as if the impending arrival could crash through any second. I don't know, Sarah replied, swallowing her mounting dread. But we have to hold our ground. We can't back down now. The lawyer's skepticism carved a deeper line in his brow. You kids are naive if you think this won't turn hostile. Maybe it'll be hostile. Maybe it'll be vicious, Rachel shot back, urgency threading her voice. But we can't just accept that. We need to show that they can't bully us. The burly man re-entered, a grimace on his face. There are cops outside. They're looking for someone, he said, tension coiling tightly in his shoulders. Who? Sarah's voice was sharper than she intended. They didn't say, the man replied, shaking his head. But they're asking about you. Mainly about your group. Fear clawed at Sarah's insides. About our group? Why? They're asking questions about the protest you organized, the man explained, voice low and cautious. Jessie stepped back, her eyes wide. They're trying to intimidate us, trying to scare us into silence. Sarah clenched her fists. Well, we're not going to let them. In the midst of rising panic, an unexpected calm washed over her. She glanced around at her friends, their faces framed by shadows of doubt. The weight of the world was on their shoulders, but she felt an urgent flame starting to burn within her. Maybe silence wasn't the only option. What if they flipped the script? Listen, she said, her voice rising over the murmurs. If they want to come for us, let them. We can use that. We'll take this to the media. Let everyone see what they're doing. Is that even smart? The lawyer interjected, voice laced with skepticism. Smart or not, it's the only way, Rachel countered. We have to show them that we're not hiding. If this is a fight, we need to make a stand. No matter what happens. Suddenly, the front door swung open fully, and a young officer stepped inside, uniform crisp and eyes scanning the room. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Sarah Mitchell? The officer called, stepping forward. The air was charged with a blend of dread and defiance. Yes, Sarah said, steeling herself. Come with me, please. What's this about? Jessie demanded, protective instinct flaring. The officer's gaze hardened. We just want to ask some questions, that's all. Right. Questions, Sarah shot back, feeling the resolve that had been building surge within her. Questions about what exactly? But the officer did not relent. The protest. Your group's actions. We're looking into a lot of things and it might be better for you to cooperate. Cooperate? Sarah echoed, barely able to keep her shock at bay. You think this is about cooperation? Don't you see what's at stake here? There was a pause and the tension snapped like a raw nerve. Behind her, Rachel stepped forward, ready to push back. Jessie clenched her fists, and the burly man shifted uneasily from foot to foot. Please, the officer said, his tone softening, this isn't what you think. We just need to talk. As Sarah met the officer's eyes, a sudden thought pierced through the uncertainty. What if the truth could be used against them? They had to take a risk, but was she ready to step into the unknown? Let us go, Sarah said after a long moment. But know this, when we're done here, we'll make sure everyone hears our side of the story. As the officer turned toward the door, the others exchanged fearful glances, the burden of their choice weighing heavily on their shoulders. The fight was escalating, and the enemy was no longer just a corporation. How much more danger loomed ahead of them? The moment of truth loomed, and Sarah took a deep breath. The battle was just beginning. Would their voices finally break through the silence that threatened to consume them? The air in the diner felt charged as Sarah stepped through the door, flanked by the young officer. Behind her, she sensed a mix of anxiety and solidarity from her friends. They all shared a singular goal: to let their voices shatter the long-held silence of fear. As they moved toward the squad car waiting outside under the harsh glow of streetlights, Sarah tried to steady her racing heart. She could see her co-workers peeking out the diner's windows, their expressions a mirror of her own mix of hope and uncertainty. Were they really ready for what lay ahead? Once inside the car, Sarah faced the officer. You said you just wanted to talk, she began, her tone firm. But it feels like I'm being hunted. The officer nodded, suddenly sincere. I get that it feels unfamiliar, but we're here to understand what's happening, what Mr. Gary is doing. There's been too much silence around his behavior. Sarah felt a rush of relief flood through her. You mean to say people are finally paying attention? Slowly. We're working to change the culture here, he hesitated, hesitating. If you give us what we need. But we need your testimony. Testimony. The word echoed in her mind, bouncing between hope and fear. She thought of all her co-workers in the diner, their faces filled with shared struggle. I want to just speak for myself. Our story is bigger than me. We're a community. The officer nodded again, his expression shifting to one of understanding. Then let us start there, he encouraged. Bring your friends in. Let us gather everyone's stories. As they drove, Sarah felt the heaviness in her chest begin to lighten. The potential of change sparked in her heart, igniting a determination she thought had flickered out. She wasn't just fighting for a bonus anymore. She was fighting for all those who had felt helpless, like her. Soon they returned to the diner, where Sarah could feel the buzz of nervous energy. When she walked back inside, her friends rushed to meet her, concern etched on their faces. Are you okay? Rachel hurriedly asked, her eyes wide. I am. And we need to do this together, Sarah declared, the fire within her blazing anew. The officer wants all of our stories. It's time to make our voices heard. A flood of encouragement swept through the group, raised voices chiming in support. They gathered around the small table, all eyes on Sarah. The past weeks of unbearable silence began to dissolve. It felt as if the bonds forming among them were stronger than any wall they had encountered. Jessie pulled out a notepad, glancing at everyone with fierce conviction. Let us start with everything we've encountered. We have emails, testimonials, witnesses. This could turn into a powerful case. Each individual shared their experiences, laying bare the weight they had been carrying for too long. With every word, with every shared struggle, they transformed their fear into strength, amplifying their fight against Mr. Gary's injustices. As the stories unfolded, Sarah watched their faces light with a mix of recognition and empowerment. They were no longer shadows in the background but brave souls shining under the weight of truth. The officer listened intently, jotting down notes and often interjecting with thoughtful questions. What was happening felt monumental. This was a pivotal moment, a time to embrace their unity and strength. After several intense hours of storytelling, they began to feel the sense of catharsis wash over them. They finished their session. Sarah looked around at her friends, tears stinging her eyes. We did it. We faced our fears together. Just then Mr. Gary burst through the diner door, a storm of chaos trailing behind him. You think you can just air our dirty laundry? He shouted, eyes blazing like a wildfire. The group stood firm, Sarah's heart pounding loud and defiant in her chest. This ends now, Mr. Gary, she said, her voice steady, unwavering. You can't silence us any longer. We're ready to share the truth. Mr. Gary's face twisted with rage, but this time it was tinged with uncertainty. He stepped back, momentarily losing his footing. Amidst the united strength of those he had tried to break. Do you honestly think they'll believe you? He sneered. You're nothing but a mob of disgruntled employees. But now their voices harmonized. They were earnest. Rachel stepped forward, anger radiating but courage overpowering it. We're not afraid of you anymore. We're done being afraid. The diner echoed with agreement. With Mr. Gary cornered and the shadows of his intimidation fading, they understood their resolve was intimidatable. And as the officer stepped forward, ready to act, Sarah saw that they had ignited a fire. A phoenix had risen from the ashes, fueled by the power of unity. We are not just a number in your system, Sarah declared. We are a community, and our voices together can't be drowned out. With the air buzzing with their collective truth, the path ahead felt brighter. They had stormed into this fight as individuals but emerged as a whole, ready to take on whatever may come. The loud sounds of sirens resonated in the distance, but this time they felt not fear. They felt the thrill of their victory and the power of their unity propel them forward. Now it was time to take a bold step toward justice, and together, they would carve their path, a path leading to brighter days ahead. And now let us turn the spotlight to you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support more hopeful transformations. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, and this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.